Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Bridging the Gap with Two Connections with Darla Williams here. Today, I am featuring Kristen Castrataro, who actually goes by Kay. She prefers Kay, just give her the letter and she goes with it. Let me go ahead and give you a little bit of background and detail about Kay. Kay is Kristen M. Castrataro, her tongue-tied and
Castrataro. Yep. No, my maiden name was Dame, nice and simple. Then I got married and I got that Italian last name. I apologize. That's why we go by K. And I just gave myself the royal we too.
Kay supports farmers and expresses expressive writing to align their activities and relationships to their deepest needs and values for lives of greater satisfaction, efficiency, and peace. She is a fifth generation farm kid. That's tough. If you've been on the farm, you know that's tough. A certified journal to the self-instructor and a founder of Penlight LLC, which provides expressive writing and farm life consulting services. Her monthly column, Farmers First, supports farmer mental health and is featured in Country Folks Grower, Kay's podcast, Food, Flowers, and Fun launches August 1st. So you don't want to miss out. August 1st, 2025. Her own podcast is coming out. So not only is she featured on other podcasts as well as this one today, but she's going to be opening her own you don't want to miss. And spotlights the voices of women farmers from around the world. You can reach her at www.pinlightfarmers.com or www.pin-light@org. And if you need to, just rewind it and play it again. So, first off, Kay, thank you for being here. And as I stumbled through the first part of your last name, I do apologize. I get
Oh,
tongue-tied
don't worry.
twisted sometimes. And I appreciate you stepping in so people know who you are. I appreciate that.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
So first off, I want to ask you a brief question, just sort of a quick synopsis of who are you and how did you get into doing what you do?
Who am I? So I am a little bit of an eclectic. And how did I get into what I'm doing? I probably should have known this when I was six, because when I was six, I got responsibility for our farm stand, which sounds a little bit more terrifying than it was. I mean, we would have like a wheelbarrow of sweet corn and a couple of squash, and I would sell it to people. But I was six, and there was a lot of time when there was nobody else there, and I spent a lot of time reading. And as I grew up, I started writing my own books on brown paper bags. I'd cut them open like we did, back in the days when we had actual textbooks and we used to cover our textbooks. Well, I would cut the paper bags open like that and I would start writing on the blank inside and I just write all these stories and then I flip it over and write in between the words on the front. So I probably should have known then that I would end up integrating writing and expressive techniques and farming. But it took me, 40 years to put all that together and realize that I had a skill set now that could really support farmers in ways that I don't think they'd been supported in the past. And that's how I ended up here.
So tell us a little bit about, how you're supporting the farmers.
So I basically work with farmers who are feeling overwhelmed, which is a lot of farmers. And they feel like there's a part of themselves that has somehow gotten lost. Like they really want to love farming, and yet there are an awful lot of days where they're starting to feel like the farm itself is killing them, and that all they do is work for the farm instead of the farm working for them. So I help them to kind of look through who they are deep inside and to redefine their key goals and values for themselves, not as farmers, but as people, because they're people first. And sometimes farmers forget that. And then I say, okay, what are we going to do every day in your life to help meet those deepest goals and values? And I don't say so much desires, but it's really the needs. It's the needs that we have as people, that without that, if we're not meeting those, if we're not fulfilling the things that really count to us, it really does suck our life away. And then I help them work out how to navigate their relationships around that, because oftentimes what happens is once we figure out, oh, my values are actually different than the way I've been living, and we start to realign those two things, our relationships then have to change because we are no longer acting the same way that we did before. And we have to figure out how to help other people to recognize who we are and to maintain or change relationships as needed. Doesn't mean that we necessarily, blow up all of our relationships. Hopefully we don't. But it means that now we have skills to help to navigate things that maybe weren't difficult before but are now, or things that were difficult before but we didn't want to talk about it, so we just put up with it, and now we're like, can't really do that anymore. So how do we do that? And that's what I help with.
So, talking about that and seeing what you are doing to really help them to tune back into their why. That's really what you're doing. You're helping them to find their why. What is your why?
So, my why is that, first of all, I really, really love Jesus. And so, my whole life has been about trying to be more like the kind of person that Jesus was and is, um, and to love people the way that he did. And so, my why is that I look at these farm women, especially whom I have grown up with and I love so much, and I see them struggling so much, and I say, you deserve better than this. You are feeding us, you are bringing us beauty, you are providing us amazing memories through agritourism, and yet you're sitting there and you're feeling like you're starving and like you have no joy left and there is no beauty in your life. And that shouldn't be the case. So that's my why. My why is to provide them with that opportunity to redevelop all of that really life satisfaction that they spend their whole lives giving to us.
So you're really a faith-based business, giving back
Oh,
to those and sharing the love of Christ to one another.
yeah. And my faith is hugely important to me. Like I don't honestly, I can't even imagine who and where I would be without my faith. Um, but you do not have to share my faith to work with me at all. I believe that I'm going to come to you and I'm going to give you what you need when you need it, the way that you need it. And so, you can agree with me, you can disagree with me. This is part of those good relationship skills that I also teach, that, we don't all have to agree to be able to get along and to support one another.
That is beautiful. I really think that that's great. With all of us having our differences in life, we do across the board. We have different faiths, we have different opinions, and every one of us has it. So if we're able to literally set some of those, political thoughts or religious thoughts or spiritual thoughts down and actually meet people as people, like you're saying, that's what you're
Right.
saying. I want to meet you as a person. I don't want
Yeah,
to meet you as whatever I want to meet you because I'm going to like you because you're showing up authentically.
right. Absolutely.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Okay, so I know that you have not only that, but you are an author of
I,
several different books from different genres, even. You
I
have
do. Yeah.
several different things
I
going
happen to have
on.
them. Of
And yay, she brought them.
course I did. Why would I not? Shameless promotion. Shameless promotion. No, the truth is, so I write, you know, uh, when I was an English major, because that's what I ended up finally majoring in college. They always told you to write what you know. And I never wanted to write what I knew because I was like, what I know is boring. Like nobody cares about what I know. And finally I got past that and I realized actually we all have amazing stories within us. Everybody's story matters, and everybody has a story that should be told. And it can be told through poetry, it can be told through like this, just talking to each other. That's one of the reasons I'm starting my podcast. All kinds of different ways to tell your story. So I've always wanted to be a writer, and many years ago, I was working with my grandfather one day and he said, "Hey kid," I said, "No kid, I was like 28 at the time, but "Hey kid, you want to come help me build some apple boxes?" And I was like, "Well, I've never built apple boxes before, but sure, I'll come and learn." Well, as we started going through the process, I realized for the first time, lived 28 years on the farm, how many different types of saws there were on a farm and how they all had their very own particular use that you can't really mix and match. Like you really need to have the saw that does the job. And so I was like, this would make a great children's book. So I grabbed my camera and I wrote some little rhyming lyrics and I created Grandpa's Farm Has Lots of Saws. And I self-published it at that point, which was a very interesting experience. I would love to go and refresh this version. I'd definitely love to have like a real photographer do like real stuff with it, but that's a
Okay.
project.
I have a question for you since you're sharing about it. Do you have a description on the back telling about the book?
Of course I do. Grandpa's farm has lots of saws, celebrates the bond between Grandpa and his little shadow. During a visit to the farm, a grandchild enjoys watching Grandpa use his many saws for different jobs. Rhyming text and photographs describe nearly a dozen saws and their uses. A safety section reminds children that saws are only for adults and should always be used with protective gear. Because I was told when I was getting permission from all the saw manufacturers, you got to have safety stuff in there. I'm like, okay. so, so, so I did. I put all the safety stuff in.
I love that. And, that really does expand for the kids to get a deeper understanding of, the equipment and things that are happening behind everything. I love that. And their story. Here you were, a little girl shadowing your grandfather and making the boxes with him for the
Yeah.
apples. So how all of that goes together and how much work really goes behind what the farmers do.
Oh,
That
yeah.
that is amazing, that we could actually wrap that up and bring that to others awareness because they don't understand. You go to the supermarket as anybody else and you're picking your fruit, you're picking your vegetables, you're going and getting your meat, you don't realize the extensive work that everyone does behind the scenes that brings that service to you.
And
And
everybody thinks that farming is like this. They really do have this idyllic pastoral view, like, that you're all just out on the sunshine and the fresh air. And yes, there are days where you are out in the sunshine and the fresh air. And then you're out when it's 100 degrees out and the sweat's pouring down and you're hauling pipes on your shoulders so you can keep the crops from dying and drying up. And it's raining and you're out picking corn. I can't tell you how many days I was picking corn in the rain, and you're either wearing the gobbledygooky rain suits that, you're all sticky and smelly inside, and you can't really tell if you're wet or with or without. And like, yeah, no, it's a lot of work, and I get that. And so when I tell farmers that I'm going to work with them, I do not at all promise I'm going to make your life easier. Like, I can't do that. I can't make farming easier. I can help you create a farming life that feels easier for you. Because if you're farming the way you were meant to farm, you're going to be a whole lot happier than if you're farming the way somebody else was meant to farm. And too often, especially on family farms or really professional operations that have a lot of stringent requirements for them and policies and all that kind of stuff. You can often get trapped into doing somebody else's way of farming and to think that anything other than that is wrong. And I don't believe that. I think we really need to expand our view of what farming looks like, um, and kind of get rid of a lot of the stigma that can happen if you're not just following the farming party line. It's nothing to do with politics, but we do it to ourselves. We stick ourselves in these boxes that we shouldn't be in.
Exactly. That is a great piece you've just said. For anyone listening, really encapsulate what she just said. We put ourselves in our own boxes. It's really not anyone else out there going, oh, look at so and so. It's us in our own dialogue creating those boxes. And I'm so glad that you hit on that and that we could bring that out in this. Oh, my. See, here's where you have real stock in what Kay is saying. She just showed you a tip of being able to transfer your thoughts and what she's doing, helping you to create. So if you're a farmer out there and you're struggling, you feel like you're boxed in and you don't have a way, Kay's really your person. She knows what she's doing and she can really help you. That's just having the gift of being able to speak with you, Kay, is nice because I know from my own experiences and being of someone who lives out in the country, seeing the farmers, watching how exhausted they are coming in and they're still delivering, they're still doing what they're doing, and knowing that there's so much behind it. You know, I'm not personally into the farming world and the agriculture and all of that detail. However, I'm around a lot of people who are. So I hear about it all the time. And I know that your needs, what you do, is going to help a lot of people's needs. And I think that this is beautiful.
Thank
Now,
you.
I know you have another book, and I want to make sure we get that in. And you said something about poetry. I mean, that is where
Yes.
you touch base with the life itself. So this is your soul work. Your
So this is funny because I never considered myself a poet. I considered myself like short stories, children's books. Like I thought narrative was my thing. And I kind of stumbled into poetry because I went through a decade of really hard times. I was divorced, my kids were abused. I was broke because I was divorced and my kids were abused, and we were doing DCYF and we were going around to therapists. Oh my gosh, 8 million different types of therapists. 90% of what I've learned about mental health, I've learned because I've had to learn it in order for us to survive. Like it is definitely lived experience. And the stuff that doesn't work for me, I don't share it unless it's been definitely proven by somebody else. And I'm like, well, this hasn't worked for me, but you can try this because other people say it. I tend to stick with the things that work for me. Well, I didn't even realize that expressive writing, which is what this actually ended up being, is so healing. I I realized it after I'd already finished it. It's kind of what happened. I started writing poetry to talk about the grief and the loss that I had experienced, and not just me, but the people around me. So this is definitely, it's called Whirring Wings, Songs from the Locust Years. And the locust years is a reference to a verse in Joel where God is saying, I will restore to you the years that the locusts have eaten. And for those of, I'm getting shivers. For those of us who are farmers, that idea of a complete crop destruction at the hands of nature is all too real. And it is devastating. It is absolutely devastating. When you're living through that, you think you cannot ever make it out. And yet, most of us as farmers find a way to keep slogging forward. But that verse is saying, I'm not just going to get you through the locust years. I'm going to restore what you lost. I'm going to give you even more than what you had before this disaster came to you. And so this was my poetic version of sometimes just sitting with the misery. Like I've got some that are about miscarriages. I think miscarriages are something that are really not talked about enough. I have not, thankfully, ever experienced one, but I've got a sister, a sister-in-law, many good friends who have, and they're devastating. They're devastating because not only do they break your heart like any loss of a child would, but our culture has no system for honoring that. There's no grieving process around that. And so there are a couple of poems in here that are just that. They are like, how do we grieve this loss and honor the person that we were going to have, that we don't have, that we don't, we're going to remember them. We're going to remember them on their due date every single year, even though they weren't born. We're going to remember them on the day we lost them every single year. So, what do we make out of that? How do we deal with that? I've got a story in here that is based on a friend of mine who committed suicide and poem, I should say. And I really struggled with that. I didn't know how to get my head around how somebody loves Jesus and commits suicide. Ugh. He was bipolar. Bipolar disorder is a horrible, horrible condition because
Yes, it is.
oftentimes people will try to commit suicide with bipolar. And if they survive it, it's usually the only time they try. Then they're able to get the help that they need. But too many people don't survive that first attempt. And so then they're gone. And so I had to step into his shoes for a little while and just be like, what must you have been feeling to come to this point where the only thing left is to go and to sit into your truck and to die of asphyxiation? Like, why did you do that? And so I'm really not making this a very happy read, am I?
Well, it's
But there's hope
actually,
at the end too. I will tell you that like I believe in feeling the feelings. And so like the grief is real and it's there, and so is the hope, because there is hope even in the worst of situations. There are ways that we can learn to grow from that if we allow ourselves to. Like healing doesn't just come with time. Healing comes with intentionality and with looking for the meaning in the life that you knew, in the grief that you're experiencing, and what you're going to do with that. Because we all are going to face grief. We're not all going to have a miscarriage, but we're all going to lose somebody we love. We're not all going to have mental health issues, but we're all going to know people who are struggling, who've got depression, who've got, any number of things. So, what are we going to do with that? How do we use that to make us better people and to provide better support to the people around us who are hurt? So, I got a
but
little upset there.
But I
Sorry.
want to say, no, no apologies necessary. Sorry, not sorry. That's what I have. I've had a friend tell me that once, and I've used it ever since. Now, what I want to say though is what you really just encapsulated is you took a moment, and what is grief? Grief is it comes up anytime. We never know when it's going to hit us. You were talking on a subject that hurt, and it hurt deep. You cared deeply for this individual, and reliving the moment as you were, it brought you back the grief. And what everybody out there is seeing right now is you got to see Kay and her raw feeling, and she continued. And that's what we all need to learn how to do, is be able to carry our feelings, express our feelings in a healthy manner like she did, and deliver the story still. What a great gift that you just showed the world, Kay. I know
Thank
that
you.
it felt overwhelming and it hit you sideways and you didn't want that to come forward, but
No,
that is
it's when I say that I really believe in holding the feelings. Like I used to try to hide all that stuff, and now I'm like, this is what makes us real. This my friends is people. Like this is who we are supposed to be in the world. We are supposed to be open and honest with each other in a safe way. I mean, obviously, you're not going to share your deepest, darkest secrets with people who are not safe and will not hold those with tenderness and compassion and respect. Like, you can't do that because you're just hurting yourself more. But when you're in a place where you know that it's safe to be yourself, and that's what I want people to have with me. I want them to know that you're safe no matter what you bring to the table, because who you are is amazing. Who you are is created in the image of God. You've got the mark of divinity in you. And so like I cherish that. And how do we help you to discover that more and to bring it out and to experience it fully, so that when you're having your grief, you can be honest about your grief and not be ashamed and not be like, "Oh, man, I shouldn't have cried in church, or I shouldn't have said this to that person on the street. Okay, we say things, we tell people, we're honest. Like, sometimes you might need to say, "Ooh, I don't know if you were ready for that." But it's okay because other people are gonna that matters to them. So it's better to speak out what you're feeling and be real about it than to have it sit inside and I always love Meg Ryan's line in French Kiss, fester, 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 rot, rot, rot. And that's what happens. Like if it just sits in there, it festers and it rots, and the only person it hurts is you. So like let's let it out and look at it and say, man, I don't like this feeling. I don't like the feeling of grief. Divorce. Oh man, I hated my ex-husband for a long time. Like I've never hated anybody. I learned hatred. And I had to really work on that. I mean, when you can't pray, forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors, like there was almost a year there where my kids did, now I lay me down to sleep and not the Lord's Prayer. So, but when you face it and adjust and learn through it, then you can actually let go of the hatred, become stronger, learn something, and still have compassion for those people because now I can say I really want what's best for them. My ex, his girlfriend, his family, like I really care for them. And that was not something I thought I could do for a while. So that's what happens when we face it and work through it.
Kay, what you just were able to do is share with the world one of your biggest pain points.
Mm.
And what your poetry book really did was gave you an outlet. So what I want you to know, when you guys go to read her book, I want her to tell you a little bit more about it. But when you go to read it, what she's going to do is she's going to open the door for you to finally express the feelings that you need to express, which is beautiful because she's able to openly do that. And you have to understand, sometimes some of us have gone through some real pain stories that we may seem a little aggressive in the mannerism of the way we say things, but it is because we are the free, easy space to come and talk to about the real things that happen behind the scenes and behind closed doors. As someone as myself who has been a victim of abuse of different types, as well as someone who has had a child that has been affected by abuse of many forms, what I want to do is just hold a space right here for you, Kay, for just a moment and let you take a deep breath and allow the world to see that, you know what, we're allowed 100% to have the feelings that we have. And there isn't nothing wrong with having a conviction to making sure that our feelings are heard in the places that we hurt the
Yeah,
most.
and I want you to know that I'm seeing you right now because I'm seeing that grief as well, and that's it's beautiful that you also are feeling like you can share that because it does get tempting, especially grief is a funny thing because I tend to use a really dark humor a lot of the time, and that was
As
how I was
well.
raised. I was raised with that kind of you know just dark humor where you make it a little bit worse than it is because then you can survive
And
what you do.
move through it.
When I'm grieving, like I tend to go to laughter and crack a joke about it, and people will always look at me and be like, "Well, at least you're still laughing." And I look at them and I'm like, "If I'm not laughing, then I'm not functioning." Because when I hit the point where I can't laugh about it, then I'm in a bad space. Then I'm like a puddle on the floor and I'm not doing anything. And so there have been times, like there are definitely times where I'm like, I just need to go cry right now. And you guys can all do what you need to do, but I'm gonna go have a little meltdown. And yet I can come back then and be ready to move on through it. And yeah, lots of strategies. There's a lot of grieving processes for any kind of loss, like loss of a job, loss of a pet, like all of that's loss. And there is no bigger loss or lesser loss. Like that's another thing. Like you don't have to have a loss that fits into a certain category to be a bad loss. No, loss is loss. We weren't designed to lose. Like that's not who we were originally created to be. My firm belief. is that we were meant for the Garden of Eden. We were meant for perfection. And so when we lose those bits of perfection, that should hurt. And it does hurt. And we need to honor that 100% and not judge ourselves for feeling it and not judge others for feeling it.
Amen to that one. That is definitely the preach right there. And more of us need to be able to stand up and use our voice. More of us need to. That is one of the main things of why I do what I do and open the floor for people to actually to begin finding their voice and doing what they need to do. That is number one behind it. I love this. So, okay, let's go ahead and jump into the book real quick. Go ahead.
Oh,
Can
sure,
you
sure.
read your synopsis of the story behind?
Sure, if you want to read the back. Or I can read one of the poems if that would be better.
I think,
Because
you know what? Let's do that. If you're okay with sharing that, let's
heck
do it.
yeah. So the question is, what kind of a story do you want to? Oh, I don't think I can do any more miscarriage talk right now because it's funny, like being an aunt with lost children is hard. You know, I'm gonna go with the When Come the Locusts because this was the first one that I wrote in this collection, and I wrote it actually sitting I wrote it sitting in outside a therapist's office in the waiting room. It was a friend of mine who had gone into therapy and she did family therapy. And I wanted to talk to her about my son shortly after the abuse and all that kind of stuff. And I was really struggling. So it's called When Come the Locusts. They blow in on the west wind mere weeks before the harvest. In ones or twos they appear, few enough to dispose of underfoot satisfyingly. Crack, crunch, pop. Negligible. All at once the air is black with them. Their winged bodies swarm, buzzing around eyes and ears, assaulting exposed limbs relentlessly. Man, beast, crops. Inescapable. They do not remain long. Like bombers on an evening run, they attack from the darkness and decimate everything in their path, mercilessly ripping, tearing, shelling, inexorable. In an instant, they are gone. Behind them lie despoiled acres of wheat and rye, and hollowed-eyed souls incredulously staring, praying, weeping. Inconceivable. So begins a season of penury, in which there is no cash for luxuries, in which all things have become luxuries suddenly. Food, clothing, heat. Pitiable. This is not the end. There are those who persevere, who refuse to give in and insist on starting over once again, heroically sowing, growing, reaping, invincible. And that's the final poem because I wanted to leave people on that sense of no matter what we go through, we really can be invincible.
Well, I have a question there. In that, with that, how much would you say, being someone who coaches those in farming, as well as being a farm girl yourself, and having all the experience from generations of knowledge down, right there, what you just showed was the power behind grit and gratitudes of finding your way to
I
the.
like that grit and gratitudes. I like putting those together. That's awesome.
That is one of my favorites as well, and that's what I saw right now in you. Is you truly know how to get into the grit, but I see that you can bring the gratitudes and find the way to bring the joy to others.
That's what I want to be in the world. So thank you.
You're welcome. So before I get close out on the show, I want to make sure, is there any other information that you need to give anybody so that they can find you? How do they locate you?
Sure. So if you want to get on my weekly newsletter, which is, I promise, once a week, because I don't like it when I get like literally 3 emails a day from some of these people. I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't do that. One a week with a cute little message and a tip you can put into practice. You can come to my website, penlightfarmers.com. And it's because I want us to write a brighter future tomorrow, starting today. So that's what the Penn Light stands for. I guess the other thing is really about my farmer podcast that is coming out on August 1st. You can already find it, Food, Flowers, and Fun, on Podbeam and all of, like, if you go to Podbeam, Food, Flowers, and Fun, then it's got a page and it will send you to all of those podcasting platforms. Your favorite one, videos are on YouTube. I'm really excited about that. If you're a farmer and you're like, hey, I want to talk to Kay on her podcast, please contact me because I am constantly looking for new podcast guests and I'm just really excited to share their stories. We've got a cassava grower from Cameroon. I've got a humane chicken hatchery midwife. She calls herself a chicken midwife from California. I mean, literally all over the world. And it's awesome. So, yeah, I can't wait to have you. Can't wait to have you on the show. And that's it.
Thank you so much, Kay. And all the listeners out there that are going to be coming along this, make sure that you get connected. In the details, there will be all of her links and everything else. Make sure you go like and subscribe and do what you need to do so that she can grow as well. I am super excited. Thank you, Kay, for showing up today. And everyone out there, this was Bridging the Gap to Connections with Kay and Darla today, and we will see you soon. Bye for now.